The patch has arrived. We've got a whole lot to talk about. ArenaNet has saved PvP from the bunker meta. And look, with Celestial being nerfed heavily in World vs. World, no more boon duration or condition duration. Roaming is back as well in World vs. World. But to commemorate that, we also have a new evolution in disrespecting your opponents when you beat them in a duel in World vs. World. You can now buy the breakdance emote and breakdance on your enemies after you get them. I think it's very funny. Looking forward to seeing some of these clips, guys, of like this. Look at this emote. It's so good. This is actually high tier. I might have to buy this. I might need to get this. There's no other way around this, guys. This is incredibly high tier. You can have this. You can have this emote. That's actually the highlight of the patch. Never mind the other stuff. Okay? This is the actual patch notes here, guys. The breakdance emote is here. We'd love to see that, of course. We've got a bunch of other stuff here as well. We're going to be talking about the Necromancer changes to Transfusion and a whole bunch of extra changes that have popped up as well. All of these changes are new, right? So to be clear, we can talk about the old changes. This was the stuff in the previews. All of this still happened, okay? All these preview changes still happened. So all the stuff to Thief, Scepter, for example, a bunch of the buffs across the board, like the extra might to boon builds, like Heat the Soul, more might for Quickness Berserker, more might for Quickness Scrapper. All that good stuff still happened. And yes, the Transfusion nerf, no longer pulling allies in downstate, that has also gone through. But first of all, we're going to be having a look at all of the new changes that have also made it into the game. So, like, the previous stuff still happened. These are additional changes that have also made it into the game. And I would say a big focus of these changes are to, one, compensate Necromancer a little bit for being substantially nerfed in its support build. And also addressing the bunker meta. There are some very problematic builds in PvP right now. Very notably, Bunker Chronomancer, Bunker Spellbreaker, and also just Bunker Vindicator as well, like the Bunker Revenant builds. All that kind of stuff is being addressed here. And a couple of builds that were starting to crop up in World vs. World. Specifically, Support Mechanist was starting to kind of be on the bleeding edge of the meta because of its Alacrity application, which, by the way, is now gone. And across the board, there's another couple of pretty cool changes, I would say. Some improvements across the board to make the game a little bit better. But yeah, Warrior, if you like Bunker Spellbreaker, guys, you're in serious trouble. But anyway, let's go ahead and get on into it. Let's do Necro first, actually, because I think that's going to be the one that is the biggest change, the most controversial change. So, set the scene here. What happened to Necromancer? Transfusion, iconic ability, of course, of the Heal Scourge. It does not pull downstate allies anymore. However, what have we done to compensate Scourge for this? So, number one, Locust Swarm, Warhorn 5, we give AoE Swiftness out. That's actually a really nice change. It's kind of annoying to do on Scourge on its own. Actually, you kind of have to rely on a Herald or Relic of Feather, which is super annoying, and also kind of force you to use your heal skill to apply Swiftness rather, so a really nice quality of life here. Ritual of Life, Revive Speed has gone up from 2 to 3.5% in PvE only. That applies to your automatic Well of Blood when you press F, and also your heal skill as well. Transfusion now also heals for 2% per tick instead of 1%. This was actually nerfed down to 1% in PvE only, and now it's 2% in PvE only as well. So if you've got all of your revives up, you've got double Ritual Revive, double Well of Blood, and Transfusion rolling, that is going to give you 9% revive per second, in addition to your hand resing, and of course any healing modifiers that you have on top of that will also accelerate revive speed. And for Scourge, Trail of Anguish, which is the Snail Trail ability, you give AoE stability now. The cooldown's gone up to kind of compensate for that really powerful effect, but you also now give AoE stability when you pop it. You don't have to, like, kind of run over people with the Snail Trail to give it to people in PvE only. So let's actually talk about this. Let's talk about this stuff. So, this change is very interesting because I do not view it as a balance issue as such. I think everyone agrees that Transfusion was a pretty broken ability, like just a fundamentally insane ability. However, I think the problem with this change, or rather, I think the valid criticism of this change, is the fact that this was completely iconic to Heal Scourge, which could be considered an issue in and of itself, that this, like, one ability was so iconic to the class that it pretty much defined it. Heal Scourge was Transfusion. It wasn't really Barrier, although that was obviously a big part of it. It wasn't really necessarily being green, right, or anything like that. It was absolutely transfusion. And that flavor has been removed from the class. So the issue here is not whether Scourge is good or not. I think it is significantly weaker, especially in kind of messy pug environments. The ability to basically fix mistakes for allies every, 10 seconds or so was ridiculously broken. And there's a reason why this build is like running pugs all the time. It's ridiculous, especially on stuff like, Bone Skinner and so on. It's a broken build. Is it still going to be good now? At the end of the day, it's definitely still playable. For sure. Like, your healing output is actually surprisingly good. You're going to res people pretty fast as long as you can actually get to them and you can be close enough to actually drop your well and hit your press F there as well. Last Rites stops people bleeding out, which is still a really powerful effect. The barrier output is good. The boon application is now substantially improved as well, with swiftness and stability being more consistent. That definitely helps it. But I think it definitely needs a little bit more to keep up with other builds, because bear in mind, stuff like Heal Chrono and Druid are still in the game, and they're absolutely insane, and Heal Scourge was definitely up there with those, in my opinion, but now it's definitely fallen down a little bit because of its lack of ability. Having that unique utility was really powerful, and I think there probably is some room to give it something like this at some point, maybe on a utility skill or an elite skill, because bear in mind, by the way, Search and Rescue still exists, right? Like, and I don't think that's necessarily like a super broken ability. Like, teleporting one person with Search and Rescue is not necessarily like super OP. So maybe like there's some way that this could be added back. But I will say this does open up the design space for Scourge a fair bit, because the class essentially had to be balanced around transfusion for its entire history because of how ridiculously strong it was. There's a little bit more room for development here. Is the build still playable? Absolutely. Like in try-hard groups, it's actually not really nerfed that much because you don't really go downstate as much. In pugs, I think it's way nerfed, obviously, because it has that kind of crazy carry potential that allows you just to save the day if you play it out well. With this. So I think we need something here. I think I'd really like to see, like a weapon rework for this, like a dagger main hand rework to give it some of that class flavor back, because I do think that balance is less of the concern compared to the flavor, the identity of the build. So I think giving it a special weapon with some really cool flavor, like some lifesteal flavor on dagger main hand, kind of going back to like Order of the Vampire from Guild Wars 1 would be really cool. Like you can make your allies steal life or something like that to heal them, as opposed to directly healing. That would be really cool. Unique to Scourge or unique to Necromancer as a support. That would be really cool. Looking at staff, maybe look at some of the traits in Scourge. That would be pretty nice. But yeah, you can definitely still play this build. It's not like deleted. The flavor, the identity, the true ultra hard carry Heal Scourge. I'm afraid it had to go, but still very playable, of course, if you're into that sort of thing as well. Another thing here as well, a bit of a bonus change to Reaper. Well, not to Reaper, just to Spear as well. Well, you don't get extra pay anymore. It's only there in PvE, not in World vs. World or PvP. We actually got some insight on this. Like, it was one of the changes that I wasn't sure why it was happening, really. Like, apparently it did have some very high power in, like, very specifically comped World versus World groups with like a lot of support Scourges in there as well. But like the key feedback is that apparently it was just like a little bit annoying to play around. Like Trig was in chat and he said they got a lot of feedback on this buff, that it didn't feel very easy to play around or easy to use it. It felt a bit frustrating to play with and against. And as a result, it's going here. Maybe it will be changed into something else at some point that can be used like a little bit easier or like a bit of more fun ability to use. So kind of some cool insight there from the developers in that regard. And also, Perforate. This is the Spear 2, 5 targets on this. This is actually really nice, I think. This means that your kind of main, burst ability on the Spear for Necromancer on power builds is 5 targets now. So if you're in an open world or a cleave scenario and some kind of instance content, you're going to be absolutely blasting with the Reaper Spear here. And of course, like, you're going to be healing yourself a whole lot, doing a huge amount of damage. And bear in mind, from the preview, is that Reaper can now heal itself in Shroud for 1% of all the damage you do because of Soul Eater. That was one of the changes that was in the preview. Actually really strong, especially in AoE. Even if you're on a single target, let's say you're doing 30,000 DPS, you're healing yourself in Shroud for 300 a second, which is actually really nice. That can allow you to recover quite nicely, and obviously in an AoE scenario, that's going to be even better, actually. So yeah, I think really cool change there to Perforate, and I think a decent start on the Scourge stuff as well. Definitely expecting some more changes to this, so to kind of give it that flavor back. Again, I really want to reiterate here, like, don't doom too much regarding, like, is Heal Scourge playable? I don't think that's actually a concern. It's definitely playable. It's obviously, like, it's lost that very powerful utility, but to me, the main concern here is actually the flavor. I think Heal Scourge needs a special thing, right? It needs a special thing that only it can do. It had that with Transfusion, and it kind of doesn't have that nearly as much now. And despite having very high revive power, that's relatively uncommon. Of course, Druid, to be frank, is currently almost like the king of revives because of how insanely good Glyph of the Stars actually is as well, so with what it can bring to the table there, in addition to its, like, massive healing output. So there you go. Let's go and talk about the bunker meta next, guys. Bunker meta, let's go. Right, so if any of you guys have been watching PvP tournaments, like in the 2v2s, the 3v3s, or indeed, of course, in Conquest, in the Tournament of Legends, and the monthlies, you probably noticed that it is degenerate right now. We have got Bunker Rev, we have got Bunker Chrono, we have got Bunker Warrior, of course, being the most egregious example, with a legendary win by the French Worms that I believe ran a total of 5 bunkers. Double support Chrono, I believe double Bunker Warrior, and Bunker Rev as well, all in one thing. And, well, ArenaNet chose violence on this one because we are demolishing these builds in PvP. So, Song of the Mist, Call of the Centaur, this is the proc you get from Legend swapping with Invocation. Base healing down to 1.3k, 0.5 healing power scaling in PvP only. Purifying Essence, that's the cleanse, cooldown goes from 5 to 10 in PvP only. Energy Expulsion, and that's the elite skill, energy costs from 35 to 50 in PvP only. Natural Harmony, healing power scaling down from 1.75 to 1.0 in PvP only. Let's continue, we're not done yet. Okay, Balance and Discord, base healing from 810 to 522, and regen duration down from 6 to 3 in PvP only. Let's keep going. Let's go on to Warrior, guys. Here we go. Harrier's Toss. This is the burst skill. Doesn't evade. Oh, boom. Defiant Stance. Casting time goes up by 0.5 seconds. That's going to make it way easier to interrupt. Balance Stance. Cooldown from 40 to 50 seconds of PvP only. And then we also have full counter cooldown going up from 12 to 14 seconds. On top of that, this is a full nerf to Bunker here. Relic of Rivers. This relic was mega broken, especially on Bunker builds, because it gave you Alacrity, which let you chain your defense together because you had lower cooldowns. So you could bunker even harder. You could, like, 1v4 on Spellbreaker. Relic of Rivers. Alacrity duration down from 2 to 1 in PvP. That's a 50% nerf. And regeneration duration down from 3 to 2 seconds in PvP as well, so you don't have the regeneration uptime. Then on to Chrono, Restorative Illusions. Healing power scaling goes down to 0.3. Base healing with no cleanse down to 219, by the way. Illusionary Inspiration, 10% healing outgoing instead of 15%. Temporal Enchanter, 2 seconds of super speed and resistance in PvP only. Journey, this is Rifle 2. Healing goes down to 527 baseline, and also, of course, regen goes down to 2 seconds as well, and SOI, Signet of Inspiration, cooldown goes from 20 to 30 seconds in PvP. So we have basically taken an absolute hatchet to all of the really disgusting bunker builds. You absolutely love to see this. Very happy to see this. I'm obviously planning on running a PvP tournament, actually, Master of the Arena 3, and I was terrified at the prospect of a complete bunker fiesta happening. This patch is very good. I think this kind of kills Bunker Warrior Stone Dead, which I think is fantastic. That build was beyond unfun to interact with in every way. You should never be able to, like, stand on a point, essentially 1v3 for a relatively extended period of time and not die. And all these changes are very much targeted at getting rid of that very aggressively. It feels a little bit bad that the evade on Harrier's Toss had to go, because I think there actually is probably a universe where this could actually not be oppressive, and maybe at some point in the future that change might get reverted potentially. Because the really toxic thing about Harrier's Toss is Spellbreaker. That's worth noting here, because you can Harrier's Toss, right? Then you can full counter, then you can Harrier's Toss again, because full counter resets your burst, and you can spam it. So that was like the really toxic interaction with this build in particular. So Spellbreaker was the issue. So maybe even more cooldown increases to full counter might be necessary, but you don't want to delete like unhealthy Spellbreaker builds, because I think they are actually a pretty cool thing. It's like one of the cooler duelist builds, I think, but it does have that tendency to sometimes get toxic in these bunker scenarios. But yeah, these changes, by the way, are all really, really good. I'm a little sad that support rev is being hit pretty hard here, because that was a build that was starting to kind of creep into the metagame. A little bit, it was kind of being pioneered by the French teams as an alternative to the Necromancer as well. But yeah, like Rev has a history of being very toxic in PvP, especially Centaur builds, like Ventari builds. So I'm not crying too hard about it. Of course, the Mesmer changes here also pretty aggressively nerf support chrono. They are more targeted, by the way, at the bunker chrono. You'll notice that they aren't changing the healing coefficient on Journey. They're simply reducing the base value. And the Signet of Inspiration change, this is a very targeted change towards exactly bunker chrono, because on bunker chrono you would be really reliant on the signet to extend your boons, and you would even run, you know, it's kind of crazy to call it bunker chrono. It was basically a bunker build, but you were actually playing berserker. Like, one of the really scary things about the meta right now was that you have builds that are ludicrously tanky, but also were doing a crap ton of damage, right? And that was kind of Warrior's situation as well. Like, you could be playing that Heretic Amulet and kind of still pumping a little bit, right? While simultaneously being unbelievably durable at the same time. So yeah, very targeted nerfs here, because you actually ran Rifle Spear on this, on the Mesmer build. Like, I think one thing that hasn't happened here, and this is something that might be tricky to deal with, is actually the damage that Mesmer Spear does, because right now, one of the best things about support chrono is that you actually pump, by the way. You pump hard on support chrono. I've even seen, especially in 2v2s and 3v3s, support chronos ending up getting top damage because of how much damage the spear does at baseline. Looks like that doesn't want to get addressed here, to kind of keep the damage up and maybe even have that niche for support chrono to be a little bit more aggressive. I think it's interesting to see if this will make support chrono more in line with other supports. The big advantage of support chrono is that it's very durable. And it has very good kiting potential, utilizing all of the evades with distortion and so on. It can sustain itself pretty well. Like, could we maybe see support guards start to creep in again a little bit? Maybe. I think, not sure about Tempest. I think Tempest is a little bit too squishy to live in the current meta, but I could be wrong. Like, when we make large changes like this to multiple builds, the meta is going to shift, and that can change things. Like, things can move around a lot, but this, at the very least, increases the potential of other supports making their way into the metagame. I think we're definitely going to see experimentation with other builds. In terms of how PvP is actually going to play out. Because right now, support chrono, unbelievably dominant. It was basically the only support people even bothered to play because of how powerful it is compared to the other ones. I think these changes are a good good thing, because you don't want to have only one support viable. I think that's never really fun. To have that, it's really cool to have different variety, different teams having different approaches. But yeah, overall, these are great changes. You know, like, I think there was a lot of doom and despair, like, especially in the PvP community, about the proposed changes, because not much was really going on in PvP. I think it is worth noting that Core Guard support, I think, has got a lot better. And potentially even Firebrand support has got a lot better because of Hold the Line, the protection and regen shout, having 2 ammo charges. I think that makes, that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out, actually, in PvP. Because it's a pretty damn good ability now, because you cleanse colonies with your Relic and, of course, Pure of Voice, and you're also giving that protection uptime, which is very coveted in PvP combat, so we might see some of that going on there. As well. That's going to be a lot of fun to check out, I think. But yeah, good changes. People were dooming about this a little bit. I think this is a good response from ArenaNet. on how to actually approach kind of like some of these bunkery builds, kind of getting into the mix there. Poor old Warrior Spear. It's not over for the Warrior mains, guys. We also got nerfed pretty hard in PvE. Berserker Spear was doing a lot of damage, I believe around 46k DPS. That, as I understand, has come down to around 41 to 42k. Okay, so obligatory meme here. On paper, this is good. Like, builds doing 46k, probably not good. However, guys, we have to talk about the virtuoso in the room here. Like, if we want to say, like, a full DPS build does, like, 42k, hey, that's absolutely fine. I think that's not a big deal. Not the end of the world. I'm not complaining about that. But if we have Virtuoso doing, like, 40k DPS and being an unkillable god and having the best utility in the game, something's not quite right here. Okay, we need to go back to our balance manifesto and look at purity of purpose, holes in roles, right? And like how all of these things link together, right? We've got to have a look at that. Now, I'm actually going to read between the lines here for you guys, even more than I already do, because we're literally reading the lines, but I will read in between them. No joke, one of the reasons why they don't nerf Virtuoso is actually because of Ceres. Right now, if they nerf Vert, it actually would completely change the dynamic of that encounter and all of the modern strategies. Like, I'm almost certain that they're actually really worried about blocking people from completing that content, like, if they nerf it too hard, because that's, like, all the meta strategies evolved around that. Like, so, I don't know, like, that's probably a concern they have, is, like, essentially making content like that, like, or maybe having to consider rebalancing that. Purely because of, like, how dominant that build is in that particular encounter. It's not really a huge deal anywhere else, in my opinion. Like, Condiver almost gets a little bit of, like, undue hate. I think mainly because it's a pretty easy build to play, but the Condiver is only, like, really, really busted in actually a surprisingly small amount of places, like, mostly in Strike CMs, and honestly, mostly in Pug Strike CMs as well, like, outside of, like, the exceptions where it actually is, like, a Gigabyss, like, Saros, of course, and stuff like Kining Overlook. But anyway, that is the situation with that one. Oh yeah, quick note, actually. We also got another really cool insight here. So full counter is actually bugged. It double dips on the cooldown reduction of the burst skills and discipline. Trig actually said in my chat that it is a bug, it isn't fixed, but they're actually balancing around that bug. So there you go. There you have it. It's now considered an actual feature of Spellbreaker, apparently. So, a little bit of insight there. Honestly, really cool insight from the developers in that regard there. So, that's kind of cool. Enjoy that, guys. Enjoy it, enjoy it, enjoy it. And yeah, Cull the Weak weakness duration also decreased on Cull the Weak in PvP only while you've got Spellbreaker. So, just, again, like, really trying to hammer on some of these, like, really problematic Spellbreaker builds. All over the place. And that's kind of like, oh yeah, we got some world versus world stuff too. So the big one, and this is something that it was kind of little secret, guys, the best kept secret of world versus world. Did you know that mech was actually really good in world versus world? And this is kind of like a really cutting edge meta thing, right? Teams were starting to experiment with mech support. And a big part of this was the alacrity, right? Like, alacrity has been kind of peeled away from world versus world. Basically every build that could do it can't do it anymore, and mech was one of the only ones left over, pretty much. And this actually caused, because, you know, you can still use medkit, you can use elixir gun, right, with mech, you can do that. And because of that, support mech was actually starting to creep into the metagame. It also had the added bonus of the mech actually soaking damage, right? Because it's an extra body, a bit like the Reaper meta when you had Rise to soak up all the damage by summoning all your little minions. So this build was starting to menace its way. And yeah, I actually really like this change. I don't think stuff like mech is very healthy in World vs. World. It was also really annoying to play, by the way, because you had to manipulate the AI to make it actually good, which is... We don't really want that type of thing, I think, in the game. But also, alacrity in general is simply very problematic in World vs. World. The meta is already very... You know, there's so much cleanse, so much damage, so much corrupt, so much this, so much that. Like, cooldown, right? Having cooldown reduction is just toxic to competitive modes. I think you could argue it's pretty toxic to PvE as well, right? But yeah, it's toxic, especially in World vs. World and PvP. And we saw that with Relic of Rivers, by the way. So you can see why they did this. Like, you don't give alacrity in World vs. World anymore with your mech frame channeling conduits. And Barrier Burst gives more might now in PvE. Hell yeah, very nice. Love to see that. So yeah, good change there. The other World versus World change is actually a nerf to Power Mirage. Power Mirage, really powerful ranged DPS build, ranged power build right now. Kind of an interesting build because you have 2 great swords and you spam weapon swap to get energy sigil procs, and you can keep dodging to get your split surge off, which is the great sword Mirage burst, of course. And it just does a lot of damage, and they've reduced the might on that from 2 to 1, which is a big deal, right? Being able to constantly cap yourself off to 25 might is really going to increase your damage output. You're going to be less able to do that now. And this is a significant nerf, by the way, because, of course, this ability does multi-hit, right? It multi-hits, and therefore, on every hit, the coefficient is going down quite significantly by 0.09, from 0.45 to 0.36 in World versus World only. So, pretty significant, pretty damn significant nerf to the damage here as well. I think this was also apparently a little bit part of the mech change. Some people in the chat were saying that there was like some kind of crazy pirate shipping going on that involved mechs and mirages. I think that it is interesting to go along with the Selly changes as well. That maybe they were worried about damage being a little bit too high, because you got to bear in mind, like, the context we're looking at this in is that the meta in World vs. World is very likely to shift significantly, because currently, or last patch rather, you were running like a lot of supports, right? Like sometimes like 2, 3, even 4 supports in one subgroup, like often with Celestial builds, kind of hybrid style builds that generated a crazy amount of sustain. And now a lot of those builds, their viability is significantly in question with the loss of that boon duration, with the loss of that expertise to increase their damage and support abilities respectively. So they could have been concerned about that to kind of keep the, you know, if sustain's going down, like maybe you don't want these like crazy high DPS builds kind of popping off there at the same time. Like, I imagine this build will still be good, but we'll have to see if this was like an over nerf or not. But yeah, I imagine this will still be there, absolutely, because it is unaffected by, of course, the balance changes that have happened to Celestial, as this was not a Celestial build. Okay, that's not what that was. Poor old Spear for Guardian in PvE also gets nerfed as well. The skill now deals reduced damage on subsequent hits to a target. Oh, dude. Oh, no. They meteor showered it, guys. Ah! Oh, no. Reduce the damage coefficient from 1.8. Oh, dude, that's brutal. You know, okay, look. Balance, I get it. I get balance, but it feels so bad when you pump and then the number goes down. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, when I see, like, my meteor shower hit for 800, I'm crying. I'm actually crying. Like, oh. It does not feel good. That is actually a really harsh nerf. What the hell? I didn't actually see this one. I kind of skipped over that one when I did my initial read through here. That's brutal. I imagine it will still, you know, do comparable damage to the other builds. It was actually really strong. To be fair, it was really strong. Like, Willbender was crazy good, especially because there was actually a really fun bug that allowed you to multi-hit with Spear 2 if there were other Willbenders doing it at the same time or something wonky like that. That's also been fixed at this point. Will this build, will power Willbender still do damage? It's apparently a 4k DPS nerf, so it's probably still absolutely a-okay if you go ahead and play with this. It looks like they're just kind of bringing down some of the crazy power creep that did happen with the launch of the expansion. And that does mean that, look, that actually does say something interesting. Like, if we're de-power creeping, because my initial assumption was, oh, okay, the way we're going to balance Vert is by actually letting builds go above Vert, and therefore that compensates. Like, oh, okay, so Condi Vert's like 40k. Well, let's let other builds go up to 46k. And then we don't have to nerf Virtuoso, we don't have to worry about Ceros, we don't have to worry about, like, old content getting harder, right? We just power creep the problem away. But this actually says that they might be potentially not wanting to do that. And that kind of, you know, that then immediately leads you on to the follow-up question of, like, okay, well, what are they going to do about Vert, right? I guess we'll have to see. We will indeed have to see. And I think that's actually about it for all of the updated changes for all of this. Did we get any others? Oh, yeah, they also changed the War Claw. How about that? Yeah, the War Claw now does less CC with the Lance, but if you use the Engage skill, you get a little AoE CC. And, quite nifty, actually, you can jump off the mount in the air, which is pretty cool, I guess. That's a little little nifty quality of life improvement there as well. With that one, not too bad there. If you ask me. Ooh, nice. Objectives will remain... This is a good bug fix, actually, to World vs. World. Objectives will now remain contested, and the Repel Enemy Attackers event will restart if the objective's lord is dead when the event finishes. Yeah, that's actually a good... Yeah, this is really weird. Like, objectives in World vs. World would be uncontested sometimes because the lord would be dead and therefore not in combat. Right? That was actually a weird interaction with the new system they added for contesting. That's a nifty bug fix there with that one. But I think that's just about it. And I think we can kind of talk about some of the other changes that have already kind of made it into the game. Like, in particular, whoa, I'm logged into... Whoa! Whoa! Oh my. Look at these the Choya balloons. But anyway, wait, hang on. It's him! It's Tyrone! He's back! I actually didn't plan this, by the way. Now I've said that, everyone's going to think that I did plan this. It's Tyrone! Talbar, he has the account name reformed. He's actually back. He's brought the breakdown. He's got the breakdancing Norn over here with the balloons. One of the most powerful players in the entire game, guys. Has actually multi-boxed Chak. He dropped 2 Chak egg sacks, guys. 1 billion Aureliums and even multiple confettis by multi-boxing all these events. And he actually had a legend rank on like 7, maybe even 8 characters during the Dragon Hunter era. A player so powerful, it even got 55 to reroll and embrace Dragon Hunter as the true meta in PvP. But yeah, what I was actually tapping in to do was talk about, actually, look at this, guys. Some really cool changes, actually, to Thief. So now our Shadow Sap is now an AoE targeted ability, right? The 2 skill on Scepter. Look at how much might it provides. Look at that. Now, of course, it's not really going to be a DPS button, so it's kind of like a Heal Spectre thing, but I feel like this actually helps out Heal Spectre a lot. Like, you could just, like, throw out a 2 skill and kind of spam this ability and obviously get your initiative back by using Steel, by, you know, potentially using Quick Pockets. All that kind of stuff. And you can actually, like, give Giga Protection with this. Look at that. Like, Omega Protection coming through with the Scepter 2 there. Like, 25 might. Look at that. Beautiful. Absolutely love to see that. And, of course, the other change that we kind of touched on earlier was the addition of extra might to quickness builds. In particular, Quickness Berserker gives might whenever you use a burst skill. Now it's 3 stacks of might per burst skill. Over here, Heat the Soul. Really nice. I like this change a lot. Because one of the things that makes Herald so powerful in PvE is its ability to give 25 might, right? And I think, actually, look, the genie's out the bottle, guys, right? I think we just got to commit to it at this point. And, well, we can talk about the celerity topic later on. Ooh, little tease there for you. Like that, I'm doing that in all my videos. I'm going to tease the next topic, guys. But anyway... So Heat the Soul gives might now. Scrapper is going to give even more might when you do your blast finishes, or so your finishes, in order to generate quickness. So you're going to give easy 25 might on Scrapper, 25 might on Quickness Berserker. That really helps these builds out. Definitely give them a try. That's so powerful. Giving like 25 might, Fury, and Quickness. That is lovely. That is a chef's kiss moment. Love to see that. Really, really cool in my opinion. The Spectre stuff is actually really fun. Like, Heal Spectre, still a bit wonky in my opinion, but you know, it's something, right? It's a build. It absolutely is a build, but yeah, there's the kinetic accelerators change there as well, of course. And yeah, the other big one is actually the Catalyst as well. So, Spectacular Sphere gives more quickness duration in PvE only and 8 stacks of might, so more might. And Sphere Specialist is the GM trait. 150% base boon duration on all of your sphere boons. And you get energy while you've got a Jade Sphere deployed, and that includes the sphere itself. The sphere's ticking damage will recharge you. This is actually a big deal. Massively increases the playability of Quickness Catalyst. Your boon application is honestly going to be insane. On this build, you're going to get more damage because you don't need boon duration, right? Because you're getting that massive base boon duration, and you're just getting more application because you've got more energy, more spheres, right? And, you know, more damage on this. I am going to be really interested in seeing how well this build does. The nerds are going to be benching this and crunching the numbers as we speak. This build could legitimately be good. Way more playable, more damage, better boons across the board. And the other thing that's kind of cool about Catalyst is that even though you do have to put down an AoE, so you can kind of miss the boons, whereas Rev pulses it, note this is ranged. So you actually do have the ability to drop your spheres down on allies, which that's another, you know, kind of angle that you can have there that is actually a rather powerful thing to be able to do. Like, a lot of boon classes do have to kind of be, you know, you have to be near, you have to be on the stack in order to do stuff. This gives you a bit more flexibility with your application, which is actually pretty good to be able to do that. So very interested to see how this actually kind of pans out and how powerful it is. Yeah, I think the duration isn't bugged, by the way. I think the tooltip is bugged, if I'm not mistaken, by the way. Like, Kylio CT saying that. There are a couple of tooltip bugs here in this patch, guys. I think they do function correctly. And yeah, the other thing here as well is, yeah, as people are pointing out in chat, is the quick heal catalyst. Okay, I'm going to say it. Heal catalyst, it's cope. But this does make it a lot better. Like, you slap on your Dagger Warhorn or your Staff, and boom! You are going to be able to boon a lot easier now. Because, like, Heal Catalyst, I think the energy generation did not feel good on that build whatsoever. And, you know, it just did not feel good, all right, to play this build. And Sphere Specialist actually really helps, I think, to improve that. So, actually really a big fan of this change. With Quickness Catalyst. This is really a big fan. Also with Tempest too, like wash the pain away, cleansing a Condi on every pulse. 3 stacks of stability now, by the way, on rebound. And this is cool for multiple reasons. Because one, obviously, dude, the Coden is breakdancing there as well. That's epic, actually. I almost want to log back in. So, bear in mind, guys, you can, if you're playing the DPS Tempest build, the Fresh Air build, you can give stab on that pretty easily. Because you could already take, Eye of the Storm pretty easily, but now you can also tech in Rebound as well, and not only use that as a little bit of a life-saving maneuver, but you're also going to be able to use that. You're also going to be able to use that to give additional stability as well, which I think is actually pretty cool. So it's a very multifaceted ability. Also big. I just like Tempest in general. It's one of my favorite elite specs. I'd love to see it buffed, guys. What can I say? I'm a simple man, right? I love this stuff. And yeah, making it better in World versus World is also really nice. I think Scrapper dominance might continue, but do love a little bit of Tempest in World versus World. There were some just like basic dagger improvements too, and I think that's basically it. I think, yeah, we already talked about Guardian in particular. Hold the Line potentially being a little bit better and kind of enabling some support guard builds, I think, in PvP. We'll see how that one ends up panning out all over the place. Obligatory axe buffs, obviously, guys. I mean, look, come on, like you can't have a Guild Wars 2 balance match without buffing axe. I do like that they're actually improving core classes. That's something that I feel like I do. I feel like I mention this every single time about balance patches, but I do actually like that they are playing around the fact that new players might not necessarily have elite specs, because of course you don't get them in the new expansions. You only get them from the first 3. So buffing core classes, making core guard good, making core necro good, and so on and so on and so on. I think it's actually a really important part of the game, or making them better at the very least. So I actually do love to see some core Necromancer buffs here as well. In particular, Life Transfer. This is a cool skill now. I like that AoE bleeding. So yeah, let's get some dagger reworks, and Heal Scourge is back in business after that, my friends. But, oh yeah, Axe Thief got nerfed. Oh, the terror of ranked, guys. Dude. This build is so troll. Okay, and honestly, this was a very toxic build for new players, because it has these like tiny little axes that go on the ground, and then it uses the burst skill and it one-shots you. Like, it looks so funny. It doesn't feel funny though. Let me put it like that, guys. It doesn't feel funny, but it does look very funny. If you're either playing the thief or you're the spectator, it is content. It was probably a bit OP. I'll admit that, guys. It was a little OP. But anyway, that, I think, is just going to about do it for our balance patch review. It's a controversial one. The Necro stuff is pretty spicy, but I've got to say, I'll admit this. I was actually in despair a little bit when I saw this. I was like, wait, what? They're not changing PvP that much at all? We're doing like slap on the wrist nerfs to PvP. I actually do want to give credit where it's due here. I like these follow-up changes. I think the response in particular to PvP is very, very good. I have to criticize it though for them undershooting on this one a little bit. And I do wish they'd be more aggressive with their balance changes. I think they have to be really careful with this. In general, if you want to release a patch, don't make it safe. And I do think that this patch was too safe. There's a lot of changes in the initial one, like the preview they gave us. It was like, oh, look! We're making things a little bit better, guys. Look at all these changes. Oh, wow. Oh, look, guys. Power coefficient on the Ring of Earth from 1.1 to 1.25. Yeah. Oh, my God. I think they want to be a bit more aggressive. Yeah, they slammed Celestial in World vs. World. That's a big change. But they cannot neglect the skills changes as well. They need to do this. And I do like that they were much more aggressive in the updated notes than the ones that have now made it into the game. I think this is the kind of thing that you do need. I want to see swift responses. I want to see decisive action from ArenaNet when it comes to balance, and as frequently as possible. Like, I know I'm asking a little bit too much here, to an extent, because, you know, I get it. You know, it's making games is hard, but I do want to see hot fixes come into the game. Like, when something like... Look, when something like Bunker Spellbreaker comes up, don't make us wait, like, months to get rid of this shit, yeah? Like, people are already dooming as it is, but when this comes into the game, it's gotta go, right? It has gotta go immediately, and don't get me wrong, I'm happy that they got rid of it, because this build is dead, okay? Like, after all these nerfs, yo! But I would like to see it be quicker, and I think it is worth criticizing that. And also, with the transfusion change, I do really think that they should have had something packaged in there, like a weapon rework or a major trait rework, to compensate for this, to give Necro its flavor that it has lost here as well. Because balance is not a concern here. Heal Scourge is still going to be playable. In the right hands, the barrier is going to be good. The healing is still fine on the build as well. It's got a lot of Condi Cleanse too, which is actually kind of a relatively uncommon thing in PvE a lot of the time. It has like Giga Condi Clear, which is very useful sometimes actually in a couple of encounters, and of course could be in the upcoming raid as well. But it needed like a compensation, right? Because that was such a big part of the identity of Heal Scourge that I think losing that feels pretty bad overall. But yeah, really good changes. The follow-up is actually way more hype than the actual preview. The preview is just like a bunch of like almost fluff changes, right? Like that, to put it not so politely. It was like, oh yeah, look, we reduced some numbers. Be happy, guys. Feels good. But yeah, like these changes are targeted. They address real issues in the game, and I'm very happy about that. Very interested to see how the PvP meta plays out. I will definitely be taking a look at some tournaments and maybe even some scrims of some teams to see what's going on there for the upcoming Masters of the Arena. Oh yeah, PvP tour coming right up, guys. Best one ever. Oh yeah. But anyway, that's gonna do it. I'm going back to the aerodrome, guys. I'm gonna turn off the stream and just kind of admire what we've got here, what's unfolding, if you will, in front of us. Let's log in there and take a look. But anyway, that is gonna just about. Oh, never mind. They're gone. It's over. Oh well, there's one here. There's one breakdancer. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the analysis. Thanks for watching, everyone, over there on YouTube. Shout out to YouTube, guys. I actually want to point out, whoa, 465 people are watching on YouTube right now, okay? You guys have got to get in on these streams. Get in on these streams. Take a look, embrace them, enjoy them, love them. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be epic, okay? So, that'll do it for now, though, on the video. Follow, subscribe, watch the stream, come back and watch all the other videos. Stay tuned for more. Like, leave your opinions, tell me I'm right, tell me I'm wrong. Say a variety of things. And of course, buy the game using my referral link, guys. And of course, I'm saying that a lot now. I'm going to say of course one more time. That'll do for now. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. GG.